Dana, I loved your book. It's so great.
Thank you.
You come from a really interesting background, which is you write about all of, this sort of about beauty, about style, about culture, in a very intelligent way. And you were also a model before all of this. So I'd love to hear a bit about what kind of modeling you did, and how does that inform your style reporting now?
Well, first of all, that's a big scoop.
Yeah,
because
that is a
I
big
never,
scoop.
ever talk about it. But I started when I was 14 in Philadelphia, and then at 16 in New York. And it was simply a question of economics. My parents hadn't saved for my college education, and I was 16, and there was no money to go to college. And so they said, well, kiddo, you're going to have to earn it. And so my father took me up to meet Eileen Ford and John Casablancas. And Eileen Ford said she's too young to come back in a couple years. Her face hasn't finished changing and growing, and it's still a little babyish. John Casablancas said, I'll sign you up right now. And he gave me the most interesting and important talk I ever had in my life about being a woman. The first talk, actually, about beauty. And
you were 16.
And I was 16 with my father sitting there. And he said, whatever you do, don't let anybody talk you into doing something about the way you look, ever. Changing the way you look. He said, Lauren Hutton was told so many times to fill that gap in her teeth, and she didn't do it. And now what is she known for? The gap in her teeth. That's her signature. He said, don't ever change anything. Funny enough, a few years later, this is the same man who gave his girlfriend, who was one of his models, a boob job for her birthday. But
Maybe he didn't respect her as much as he respected you.
I thought it was a really, really wise, and the same thing with Andie MacDowell, and she had all that fantastic hair, and someone told her that she should straighten it. And John said, no, that's going to be your signature, is your hair. Leave it alone.
Well,
Just,
the trap is being persuaded that there's something that always needs to be fixed.
exactly.
That for women's bodies are something that is a project that needs to be fixed endlessly. There's never going to be not something wrong with you, and to get talked into that is pretty culturally spread out.
Yeah.
And to not buy into it is difficult. Sorry.
And so to have that lecture at 16 years old was it was really profound. And when I was a model, then at 18 I moved to Paris, and I was modeling in Paris. And my roommate got super, super, super skinny. And if you get that skinny, you lose your boobs. So then she went out and got a boob job so then she could get, and so I was living with people who were, and then also I at one point roomed with a girl who was bulimic, and I was working with a girl who was anorexic, to the point that they finally had to send her home and send her to a hospital to start eating again. And somehow I managed to avoid all this because I kept seeing all these girls around me who were just crashing and burning. And I stood back and just watched it. But it was hard. I would come into the agency, and my agent would say, it looks like you've put on a kilo or two, 3 pounds, and he'd make me get on the scale in his office. It starts really messing with you. And then you sit, and you've probably experienced this too, you spend all day sitting in a dressing room in front of a mirror. You start seeing things you've never seen before.
Well, the secret to happiness is never look after 30.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
No mirrors in the house.
If they want to
no
look at you,
mirrors
it's
in the
fine.
house.
Just stop
okay?
looking.
That's the first thing. No mirrors in the house. But I had another agent who was really smart in his advice as well, and he said, don't change anything. And also, don't wear makeup, because we want the clients to see what you look like so that they can then project something on you, which is part of modeling. You're never who you really are. And that got me into the habit of not wearing makeup, and now I'm 44 years old and I don't wear makeup. And the hairdresser the other day asked me, when are we going to color your hair? And I said, never. And when I was 35, I cut off all my hair. I had hair down to here, and I just said one day, I want it gone. I'm just going low maintenance and simple and just letting myself be me. And I wear no nail polish, and I'm completely like as simple and clean as you can be. And it goes back to that conversation when I was 16 with John Casablancas, who just said, be yourself, be natural. That's what you are, and that's charming. There's something really charming about being natural that we forget about, and being thankful for what you're born with. And I remember another time later when I was 21 or 22, and I met a really a top director or actor in Hollywood. And we were talking about other models. And he said, oh yeah, and she's had her boobs done, and she doesn't carry herself. She carries herself funny, like she's not used to them, even though she's had it for 10 years. Or somebody else who had her nose done, and he said, you can tell by just the way she moves her head and her face that is not the nose she was born with, and she has a different image of herself than the one that she has created. And I thought this was also very, very, very interesting observations, and I sort of absorbed all this and took it, always incorporated it into my life. At 21, I got out of modeling. I quit. One day I just walked in the office and said, I don't want to do this anymore. They said, but you have this job and this. I said, cancel it all, I'm going home. And I took all the money and I went to college. And I never looked back. And I never, ever said, I'm sorry, I'd stopped doing that. But I learned a lot about it. People ask me now if I would have my daughter model. I said, no way, never in a million years. Because I never wanted her focus to be about the way she looks and her beauty. And for years, people have been telling me I should do television.
Oh, God, I used to get that all the time. And
Do
I still get it.
television.
It's
Why,
the worst.
and my father being the worst. And why are you only writing? And I said, because I don't want to make money off my looks. I want to make money off my thoughts.
It's amazing.
Or not even make money, but just do my job off my thoughts. And what's more, that my name is an asexual name. 90% of the letters I get are Dear Mr. Thomas.
Well,
Which confirms that I'm not making any inroads because
Right.
of my looks.
Well, at the New York Times, I used to pick up the phone when I first started there, and I would say, hello. I always answer in a very non-committal way, like, hello? And it's like, this is a reader from Brooklyn. Is Mr. Kaczynski there? And I would say, this is his secretary. Can I take a message? And then some guy would leave some angry message. But that was very useful for a while. But it is amazing when you're a journalist. If you're in your 30s and remotely attractive, people are like, why aren't you on TV? And it becomes this sort of clarion call over and over again. And
Oh, I'm not on.
people don't understand that it's kind of a pain in the ass to wear makeup and mascara every day. It's like, it's horrible. It's the worst experience ever.
It's like war paint. I mean, we used to call it war paint, and
Well,
it really does feel that way.
when
And every
you-
time I put it on now, if we're going out to something fancy and I'm wearing something really elegant and I've got all the jewels on and suddenly my face looks like it's sort of disappeared, then I might put a little makeup on. And it always feels very strange to me, like I'm putting paint on.
Right.
Well, you are. It's dirt. It's glorified dirt. My mother was a redhead and had white eyebrows and white eyelashes, so I used to watch her spit into the block of Miron, and build her eyelashes like that. And I do it still, just because I feel absolutely naked. And I have black eyelashes, so that's just that. I imagine you look a little bit like your grandmother, right?
Yeah.
And I look like mine, and you probably look a little bit like yours.
Yeah.
The thing that's distressing to me is the standardization of perfect. This thing we've got perfect in the title of our talk,
Right.
that there is a perfect, and there's only one kind of perfect, and so we get a whole generation of actresses, young actresses, who have obviously all gone to the same doctor.